There are spirits everywhere, watching, waiting, seeking that opportune time to reveal themselves like no other. They fill our worlds with so much.
Seriously? You didn't just do that. You farted on the promo? What's wrong with you? I thought you were a professional. Go away. Go. I got it. Hey everybody, it's Brian Bowden, host of Nobo Boomy, where we explore deep inside the Goblin universe. We have an amazing show that covers the paranormal, conspiracies, music, art, entertainment, trending topics, and so much more. Please join us by subscribing to the show on Podbean at InsideTheGoblinUniverse.podbean.com, on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, TuneIn, and everywhere you find podcasts. It's an informative, fun, and overall entertaining good time, and we'll keep the gas to ourselves. Why don't you burp next time? Somebody get me Brian Anderson.
Welcome to Paranormal Heart, a place where people can talk about their paranormal experiences. With your host, Kat Ward, along with a special segment, Oddities with Jon Mallard.
Welcome back, folks, to Paranormal Heart, your monthly paranormal podcast. You can find Boo and I the last Sunday of each month at 6 p.m. Eastern, and you can also find us on YouTube, radioandpodcast.com, Paranormal Radio, iTunes, Stitcher, as well as every Sunday at 6 p.m. Eastern at iamdarkwaters.com. And don't forget to show the love. Like, share, subscribe, or follow wherever you listen to the show. I'd like to give a little shout out to some friends at After Midnight Podcast, Cap'n and the Meerkat, and The People Under the Stairs. They all have great podcasts that you really should check out. Tell them Cat and Boo sent you. Thanks so much, guys, for all your support. I really appreciate you guys. Before I get to my next guest, I wanted to let you in on some changes I've made to the show. I'm so excited to announce that I'll be adding a new segment called Oddities with Jon Mallard. Jon has a wonderful show of his own called Odd to Newfoundland Paranormal Podcast, and I'm so honored that we will be working together. I'm really looking forward to seeing what odd things he'll come up with each show. Oddities with Jon Mallard can be heard right after I introduce my guest, followed by the interview. And please let me know what you think of Jon's new segment at paranormalheart13@gmail.com. My next guest, Steve Stockton, has some pretty fascinating experiences to share with us. He's been fascinated with the paranormal ever since and has written a few books on the subject. He has a great YouTube channel called 13 Past Midnight. That's 13 spelt out, not the number, where he narrates true creepy stories. And I'm so excited to speak with him. Let's welcome Steve Stockton. But first, enjoy Oddities with Jon Mallard.
Why, hello, my odd friends. Welcome to this month's Oddities on Paranormal Heart. It's soon time to pack up our cars, our vans, our trucks. Pack our coolers neatly and just throw our kids inside those cars and go camping. Yes, it's true. It's coming. It's happening. Summer is just around the corner. And for a lot of us, it's time to hit up some theme parks. Well, this month on Paranormal Heart, guess what? We're going to be looking into odd theme parks. Because, you could go to Disneyland and have fun, or you could go to one of these perplexing places. How about Bon Land? Sounds innocent enough, right? Bon is a Danish company that makes candy with a toilet humor theme. Its most popular product is something called dog fart, by the way. Bon Land, the fourth largest amusement park in Denmark, takes all of Bon's cartoon animal character mascots and turns them into rides and attractions The signature ride is a dog fart roller coaster, which winds around giant mounds of dog doo, pooping dogs, and giant speakers that play fart noises. I mean, what's not to love? Other attractions include a roller coaster through a sewer filled with fake feces, I might add, and vomiting rats. And statues of buxom cows and dog lifting their legs. You get it. It's totally humor. It's disgusting. And it's probably going to be on my to-do list. As if visiting a park that's full of crap isn't, fun enough. How about one that's so depressing you'll probably cry on the way home in the car? Yeah, I'm talking about Dickens' World. Almost all of Charles Dickens' literature takes place in a grimy, drab 19th century England plagued by diseases, starvation, and dirty orphans. Enlightening. And at Dickens' World in Chatham, England, you can relive that horrible era every day of your life. In addition to rides based on bleak Dickens books such as Oliver Twist, there's a Great Expectations boat ride, the haunted house of Ebenezer Scrooge, a pawn shop, and a debtor's prison. 'Cause what better place to take your kids than right to jail? Throughout the park, hired actors pose as hungry, filthy street urchins. Wow. That, my friend, is an awesome idea. I just wonder, how much do you think they're paying the ghost in Ebenezer's haunted house? What do you think? And last on my list for odd theme parks this month, certainly not least, take a deep breath because this is about to get a little steamy. We're talking about Loveland. Yeah. The claim to fame of this park, located on Jeju Island in South Korea, is its 140 giant, sexually explicit sculptures. It's designed to be educational. Yeah, right. Neither South Korea's schools nor its popular culture offer much in the way of sex education, and arranged marriages are still very commonplace there. So this park was opened by the art department of Hongik University as a honeymoon destination. Because, nothing is better on your honeymoon than looking at gigantic rock, word that rhymes with rock. Theoretically, newlyweds are supposed to study and learn from the imposing white sculptures of giant reproductive organs and people engaged in various sexual positions. No kiddie rides here. You must be 18 or older to enter. So there you have it, folks. Bonbon Land, Dickens' World, and Loveland. Odd theme parks. And they were your oddities for this month's episode of Paranormal Heart. Thank you so much for your time.
Hey, Steve. Welcome to Paranormal Heart.
Hi, Kat. Happy to be here.
I'm very happy that you're here. It's been rough trying to get together. We've had to reschedule 4 times.
Yeah, we had a lot of little things happen there, but that's the way it goes sometimes, and hopefully it was worth the wait, and you'll think so anyway.
Yeah, it seems to be a normal for me lately that I have to keep rescheduling, and this is why I don't do live.
Yeah, and sometimes those are the best, the ones that take the most effort and the most tries to finally get there, and it's like, wow, this is great.
I always take it as a sign that if you're not meant to do it that, at that point, that there's a reason why. So here we are.
Absolutely.
Well, Steve, I know you have some interesting experiences and some awesome stories because of your show, 13 Past Midnight or After Midnight? Past Midnight.
Past Midnight, yeah.
Which is awesome, folks. You need to check it out. I'll send the links at the end here that you guys can click on and check out Steve's show. So go ahead, Steve.
Well, that was just something I sort of fell into by accident. I listened to horror narrators and things on YouTube, and I thought, I could do that. And then I thought, well, I've got all these stories here. Why not just narrate my own stuff? So I started out just a couple here and there, and found out I had a passion for it. So I went ahead and invested a couple $1,000s in professional equipment and microphones and software and whatnot, and I'm really having a ball with it. Plus, it's breathed new life into my stories, and that's one thing any storyteller will tell you, that anytime you get another chance to tell your stories, that's a good thing.
For sure. Yeah, and I love your stories. You have a great voice narrating those stories, and folks, they're true creepy encounters too. Yeah,
for the most part, there's a couple on there that just pure fiction that I've done as favors for people, and I'm probably going to do some more of that. But I really like doing the true stuff because that's what I've researched and written about. And there's just, I don't know, there's something about the true stories. I mean, they're allegedly true. I don't vet anything. I take everything pretty much at face value the way it was told to me, just because in most instances I had a really good relationship with the people and knew who they were and how they were. And a lot of times I kind of had to coax the story out of them. There was some reticence there. So that makes me believe that they weren't telling it, just for attention or just to get a rise out of you. So.
Yeah, your fiction ones are great as well, but personally, I really like the true stories and knowing stories from other people and what they've experienced. Sometimes it's like, oh wow, like it's amazing.
Mm-hmm. And what's really cool, a lot of times you will have people that are related to each other, don't know each other in any fashion, and they've had similar experiences, maybe in different parts of the country or different parts of the world. I love stuff like that.
Yeah. The thing that I've always been fascinated with the paranormal, and I've said this countless times, is no matter the culture or religion or whatever, everybody has some kind of a paranormal story.
Oh, absolutely. Just it knows no cultural or socioeconomic boundaries. Just any country, culture, religion, you're going to have ghosts, you're going to have UFO-type sightings, you're going to have Bigfoot or similar creatures. It's amazing.
It is. It's they say death and taxes is what everyone has in common, but you can also add, paranormal experiences, like you said, cryptids, ghosts, UFO. It doesn't matter what it is, but everyone has that.
Mm-hmm. And the ones that get me, when I talk to people, sometimes they find out what I do, and they're like, I don't believe in that. And then it's like, but there was this one time. Everybody has, but there was this one time story.
That cracks me up every time. You get this person who's diehard, nope, don't believe in it. And yeah, it's really funny. But it's nice how we can sometimes get people to open up and tell us their encounters.
And I've gotten that email a lot, people thanking me for doing what I do and saying, that made me realize that I'm not the only one that's had this kind of experience. And it makes it easier for me to talk about it, because a lot of people, don't want to discuss experiences they've had for fear of being branded crazy or on drugs or imagining things or whatever. But I've had experiences myself, and that's one reason why I don't discount anything. I mean, who am I to say what somebody did or didn't experience, because I know my experiences are as real to me as theirs are to them.
Mm-hmm. Like I've had experiences as a child that I never really spoke a lot to anybody. And then a few years ago, I hear somebody with the same encounter on a podcast, and I thought, oh, they've seen it too. And, it's just amazing. So I really love podcasts that talk about stuff like that, because like you said, somebody who might not be talking about it to anybody will hear someone else had an experience, and then they start opening up a little bit and they realize that they're not crazy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I had experiences going back to childhood. I saw my first full-body apparition when I was 6 years old, and I didn't talk about it to anybody. It didn't scare me. It was just, wonder what that was. And years later, when I talked about it, I had a grandmother on my mother's side. She self-proclaimed gypsy witch. She's very superstitious and knew all this strange folklore and things. And she was really, as a child, the only one I could talk to about stuff like that. And she'd just be like, well, it's because you're special and you'll see things that other people don't. And don't let that bother you. It can't hurt you. And just, so I had it, and I kind of came by it honestly, sort of.
So let's start there about the when you were 6 and you saw the full body apparition.
Yeah, I've told this a lot. I've probably told it on every show I've ever been on, but I'll tell it for your audience. I was out playing in the yard. We lived, our driveway was about 215 feet long, and I was pretty much in the middle of the yard, so 100 feet from the road. We lived at the bottom of an inverted T intersection. I was waiting for a friend of mine to come home, and I see a car coming down the hill to the stop sign. I first thought it was my friend. And when it stops, I realized it's not him. Person I didn't recognize in the car. Well, all of a sudden, a toddler, I mean, we're talking maybe a year and a half old, 2 years old, comes out kind of from behind the car. Mm-hmm. Didn't get out of the car, but came from somewhere behind it, ran across in front of it, kind of catty-cornered. And I'm looking at watching all this, the driver, if she saw it, it didn't register. The kid runs across the road, down into our yard, maybe 10 or 15 feet. And if you've ever watched children that have just barely mastered walking, they'll start running and then can't really stop and they'll just fall down. Mm-hmm. That's what this toddler did. He ran into our yard too fast. He tripped, fell, and was gone. I mean, absolutely nothing. Just poof, gone. And I thought, that's not supposed to happen. And I didn't take my eye off the spot. I walked straight to it. I was thinking, well, there's maybe a hole or something here, which I knew better because I played all over the yard and knew where all the features were. But there was nothing there. There was no toddler, no hole. I even went and got a shovel and dug around to see if I could find anything. Wow. Nothing there. And I just, to this day, I have no explanation for it. There were no toddlers that had passed away or anything that I'm aware of in the neighborhood to have been that type of ghost or haunting. But I saw it. I can still see it in my mind what he was wearing. He had on little blue shorts and a white shirt and a blue cap, white shoes, blonde hair. And there were no kids around like that at the time, even living. So, but like I said, it didn't really frighten me, but it intrigued me. It's just like, that's not supposed to happen. Toddlers don't run into the yard and fall down and disappear. Yeah. And that, more than anything, I think, started me on my quest to the paranormal, of looking into things and coming away with an understanding that there are things that can't be explained and things happen that aren't supposed to happen. And sometimes people see things that other people don't see. I mean, I saw the whole thing, but the person in the car, I don't think they saw a thing.
Did you ever see it again?
No, nothing from that one. And that area that we lived in down there was kind of strange. And years later, when I told my parents about it, my dad was just like, wonder what it was. And my mom, kind of cryptically, she said there was a lot of strange things that happened when we lived down there. But at the time, she wasn't able to elaborate, and I never asked her about it, so I don't really know what kind of experiences she may have there. But it was an odd place.
You can tell by their reaction that things have happened before, because it didn't freak out or say, it was your imagination. It's just, just one of those things again.
Yeah, they had both had unusual experiences. My dad had some cryptid sightings and things when he was younger, and an episode with some ghost kittens. And my mom, growing up in her family, said my grandmother was a self-professed witch. She told fortunes. She read tea leaves and coffee grounds. They regularly held seances and what they called table tapping, which is similar to using a table like a Ouija board and asking a yes or no questions, and the table actually rise up on one side or the other and tap. Yeah. So my mom was well acquainted with that sort of thing, and I had an interesting childhood.
Now, why do you think that some people and some families seem to have so many encounters and others don't?
I don't know if I think it's one of those things that you don't necessarily choose that it chooses you. And just, I think being open to it and being in that kind of environment, it kind of nurtures that ability. And one thing I've noticed that a lot of people that have had encounters or witnessed something unusual, it started during childhood. And I think it's because when you're young like that, you haven't really learned that you're not supposed to accept it. That you're taught, that can't happen. That's just your imagination, yada, yada, yada. But when you're that small, you're more open to it. And I think being receptive like that, that's why. And if you're not taught to get rid of all that, then you just kind of take that along with you. And I think that's why in certain families where it's more open and they talk about it and have different beliefs and things, that there are more examples.
Sometimes I wonder if everyone sees things, but some people, it just doesn't register with them and they never say anything. And that's why some families say, no, we've never had weird encounters. And other families, like your family and countless others, it's like, oh yeah, my father, his father, his mother. It's just, I don't know if it's a genetic thing or like a bloodline, or if it's just everyone.
It could very well be. And a lot of it, obviously, from my voice, I'm from the South. I grew up down south. And the South has a great oral tradition of passing stories. I mean, before there was television or even radio, that was what they did, especially in the wintertime when they couldn't be outdoors. My dad's family, for example, they lived out in the absolute middle of nowhere in Middle Tennessee in Fentress County. And they would sit around the stove in the wintertime and tell stories. And, things that had happened and things they experienced. And I think that's a lot of it, too. It comes along in that family or bloodline or whatever, that's your tradition, is to pass stories along. The Native Americans have that tradition, too. And I'm Cherokee on my dad's side. So, again, I think I come by it all honestly.
Yes. Sure sounds like it. Any other experiences you had as a child?
Oh, that's
or did it happen later on, or is there just too many?
There's a lot. There was one of my stories that I recently narrated for YouTube, and it's in my third book, My Strange World, which is an account of my own experiences. I started out, I had all these other people's experiences in my first two books. And when I would go on radio shows or podcasts, they would always say, well, what, have you ever had any experiences? And I would tell two or three. And I started thinking about that, and I thought, I wonder if I've got enough to make a book out of it. And sure enough, when I sat down and started writing them out, I mean, it's not a huge book, but I did have enough stories to cover a book. But the one I was going to get to when I was 8, so this was just a couple years after I saw the kid disappear, story on YouTube is called The Thing in the Ditch, and about an encounter I had with something that I couldn't see. I was in the woods. We lived on a mini farm. It was 26 acres, and I was playing near this old ditch. It was probably 20, 30 feet across, about 10 feet deep. I was up near the edge of it, and I hear something in the leaves, and I look, and whatever it was or wasn't comes up over the lip of the ditch and is headed straight toward me. But I couldn't see a thing. But there were leaves being kicked up in its wake. I mean, imagine something the size of a human running through the leaves and kicking them up at you and charging straight for you. Well, I screamed and ran down the hill and made such a racket. My mom actually heard me coming, was out on the back porch to see what all the fuss was about. And when I finally got calm enough to tell what happened, she let my father and my brother know. So when they got in from work, they went up there to check it out. I wouldn't go near the place. And they could see where something had been in the leaves, but there was no trace of anything there. Well, flash forward years later, I'm 15, and I pretty much stayed away from that area the whole time. There had been a couple times that I had a friend go up there with me, and I would stay back, kind of hide behind a tree and send him up to the lip of the ditch to see if it would chase him, trying to bait it out. But it was smarter than that, apparently, and it didn't work. Well, I go back up there, 15, I'm pretty much grown at this point, not afraid of anything, and I'm just like reminiscing and thinking, I wonder what that was that scared me when I was a kid up here. And sure enough, about the time I had gotten to the lip of the ditch and peered down in, turned to walk away, I hear that old familiar sound of something in the leaves. I turn around, comes up over the top, running straight for me again. Absolutely nothing I can see, but I can see where it's running. And I didn't scream that time, but I did hurriedly go back down the hill. And that was the last time I was ever up there. Now, flash forward again, another 7 or 8 years or so. I'm at a party after work. And the person I was with was the only person that I knew, and I just knew them from work, so it wasn't anybody that I was real acquainted with. And there were some other people there, some girls that had dug a Ouija board out from under the couch. And the hostess allowed them to mess with it, so they got it out, and they're playing with it. And they're going around the room asking people questions. Well, when they got to me, I just very simply stated, okay, what scared me when I was a child? And that was it. I didn't offer any more explanation. Nobody there knew either of those stories. And the Ouija board, I'll never forget this. It spells out WATER SPRITE.
Wow.
And they're like, is it thirsty? Does it want some water? Does it want a Sprite? What's it talking about? And they're just laughing it off. And I'm just, shaking my head. I don't know. Well, the next day, and this was before the internet and everything, I went to the reference library and looked up water sprite. And turns out it's an elemental or a fae type being, also known as a dryad or a naiad. Mm-hmm. And it's that's what it does. It protects things in the woods, particularly near water. Well, one of the other geographic features, just a few yards from where this ditch was, on our property, there were 7 natural springs that flowed into one and then into the lake. So, that makes me think that it was some sort of elemental, some sort of water spirit or something that chased me away from that ditch. Why, I have no idea, but that's what I've come to learn over the years.
Wonder why it showed itself, sort of, because you couldn't see it to you and not your friend.
Yeah,
strange.
I've never understood that, and said it didn't bother my dad or my brother or anybody else that I ever knew of. It liked me for some reason, or didn't like me.
Yeah,
extremely so.
And you've never been back since?
No, haven't been back since the last time that I was chased away when I was 15, and we moved from there shortly after that.
Be interesting to find out if you could go back, if you'd see it again.
Yeah, I've often thought about it.
Would you want to go back?
I actually would. I mean, as scared as I was, particularly the first time, that's one of the scariest encounters I've ever had. I would like to go back. And I've since heard that those type spirits often protect a treasure. And that was one of the other legends with where we lived there. The ditch had actually been the dirt road through the area at one time, dating back to the Revolutionary War period and beyond that. And there was a story that there was some gold that had been buried near those springs. So now I think maybe that spirit, it's like when pirates would bury treasure, they would often kill a crewmate so that their spirit would guard the treasure. Mm-hmm. And I wonder if maybe it's something like that, that there's something hidden there. I'd searched all over the area with a metal detector when I was in my teens and never found anything, but technology's gotten a lot better. I'd like to go back and give it another go.
Yeah, and go and say, hey, remember me? Maybe it, I don't want to say targeted you, but maybe it went after you because you're sensitive and maybe knew that you'd be able to find something where somebody else wouldn't be able to.
That could very well be.
But it's all speculation.
Yeah, of course. But I always have been sensitive to things like that and empathic to a degree as well. Mm-hmm. So I have to watch where I go into and what I'm doing. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that must have been so terrifying, being so young.
Oh, yeah. Like I said, it's still one of the scariest, probably the scariest encounter I've ever had. I had another one that was very similar with some other type of cryptid. I was with a schoolmate that time, and we both saw that one, but pretty scared that time, too.
Yeah, I think you mentioned that one in your show.
Yeah, that's the Beast of Swanson Lane is what I called it. We were playing in an old shale pit there in the area where his parents lived. Again, this was out in the middle of nowhere. Their driveway was like a mile long. They liked their privacy. And this was about halfway down old shale pit. The whole area had been a giant farm at one time, and there were still some ramshackle buildings standing around, some in the process of falling down. And upon the bank above the shale pit, there was some little wooden structure, little one-story thing that had just about fallen in on itself. Well, we're there in the shale pit, and all of a sudden my friend just kind of stops and looks up, and I look up to see what he's looking at. And there's something staring at us from the window of this little broken down shed. The only thing I can describe it was some kind of horse-human hybrid, like a horse's head, but with human eyes and a mouthful of really sharp teeth. And the eyes were on the front of the head, which horses aren't. They're on the sides of their head. And it kind of grinned, this like evil, toothy grin. And we were both stunned. I mean, just into paralysis almost. And about the time that broke, he took off up the driveway, screaming his head off. I took off with him. We get to the yard, almost the same type circumstance. His parents had heard us coming up the driveway and came out to see what was going on. We calmed down, breathlessly recanted or retold our tale, or told the tale. And his father actually got a shotgun and went back down the hill to see what was down there. And we were just waiting, just to hear gunshots, and never heard anything. But his dad came back probably after about 15 or 20 minutes, had the gun over his shoulder. But he had this, and I'll never forget, just this weird look on his face. And we're like, what was it? What was it? Did you shoot anything? Did you kill it? And he's like, no. He's like, just, you guys don't need to play around down there anymore. And within a couple of weeks, my friend told me that his dad had pulled the shed off the hill down into the shell pit with his tractor and burned it. Oh. So apparently he saw something that he wouldn't discuss, but he very, very sternly admonished us to never go down there and play. And we didn't. I was at that friend's house several more times, and we stayed away from that area. There was too many other places we could go. But that was the only thing there that we saw, and my friend never had any other experiences there that I'm aware of.
Was it bipedal? Bipedal?
I think so, because it was, I basically just saw the head, and I don't remember seeing any arms or anything, but the way it would have had to have stood to look out the window, it would have had to have been standing on two legs. And I left out the part, it was almost seemed to be wearing like a hood or a cloak with an X above the eyes. I mean, that makes it even stranger, I know, and we both sat down independently of one another sometime later and drew what we remembered seeing, and it was very similar, almost exactly the same. Have you
ever done research to see what creature it could have been, if it was a cryptid or anything?
I've looked at some stuff, and the only thing that kind of reminds me of it is a wendigo, although I didn't see any antlers. That doesn't mean it didn't have any. But now the strange part about this was the dad that was so unnerved that tore the shed down and burned it. He was full Cherokee. And so, they believe in the wendigo and the skinwalkers and stuff. So, and I didn't put that together until years later. I didn't know about wendigo or anything like that at the time. But after doing some research, I kind of think it was something like that, some sort of Native American spirit or some kind of really bad juju that we didn't want to mess with, or that he didn't want us messing with. And he knew, because he'd grown up on a reservation. And so they have this wonderful tradition of passing these stories down. So he probably knew what it was, or heard stories of that type of creature. Something was why he warned us not to go down there.
And prior to seeing that, had you been up there before?
Oh, yeah. Anytime. This was one of my best friends from second grade up until high school. And we often visited each other's houses. And we'd been in the shell pit before. That was why we were there that time. They were looking for fossils, because we would occasionally find bones and things in there. So who knows what we may have disturbed.
Yeah. Makes me wonder why you didn't see anything before, but like you said, you might have disturbed something.
Well, that was one of the things, like I said, we often found fossils and things. And right before we saw that, I found what I thought was a jawbone, like from a cow or some type of farm creature. And I didn't remember that part until much later, when I kept thinking back and trying to recount all this. And I had just pulled that out of the rocks when I noticed something was wrong with my friend, and he's just standing there, and eyes are huge and mouth open. And then I look up to see what he's looking at, and then I saw it. So I don't know if that was connection or coincidence or what, but that was the last time we ever looked for fossils in the shell pit.
I don't blame you. Wow.
But that's another place that I would love to go back to someday. And I'm sure it's changed a lot. I haven't lived in that area for 15 years and haven't been to that particular friend's house probably in 30-something years. So,
are you still in contact with him?
I haven't spoken to him in at least 25 years.
Yeah. It would be neat to get in touch with them just to say, hey, remember that time? What's there now?
I've thought about that, like maybe do a little interview with them. Hey, remember that thing we saw when we were kids? Tell me about what you remember again and see.
Yeah, that would be
See how
interesting.
he feels about it. I may do that. I'll mark that down.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see what you remember and what he remembers, and if it's the same thing, or if one of you remembers something and the other one says, oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah. And that experience is unique, and that was probably about the only time that I had somebody else with me that saw the same thing that I did. Now, I'm not counting things like the Brown Mountain Lights, which I've seen with a group of people, and I've had experiences in haunted places that other people saw and heard as well. So, but that one was, that was a solid, frightening experience and a total witness there with me. So.
Fascinating. If ever you go back, you have to let me know if you find anything.
I will.
Yeah. So what else? I know you have all kinds of things.
Oh, wow. There's so many stories. Of other people and of my own personal experience. One that was remarkable, and I've never published this one, but I was talking to a gentleman about experiences that he had. And he talked about how, and I did write about this in my book of my own personal experiences. And he talked about how at Christmas time, he would always see a little white gossamer feather floating around in his house. And that, and he told me how he came to think this, and I've forgotten those details, but he said that it was his grandfather. That I think his grandfather had even told him that after I die, I'm going to come back and visit you, and I'll come back as a feather. So he would see this feather around the holidays, and he knew that it was his grandpa coming to visit. And that was one of those things that when I heard it, I was just stunned because I'd had almost identical experience as a child.
Really?
The room where we set up our Christmas tree and things, my mom called that the good living room. That was for company. You stayed out of there if you knew what was good for you. If you were a kid, you could play anywhere else in the house. But around the holiday, and I could study in there. I could do my homework in there because the lighting was really good, as long as I didn't put my feet on the furniture or anything. But around the holidays, that was where we had our Christmas tree because we had these big picture windows in the front of the house. And probably from the time I was 3 or 4 on up until probably about 11 or 12, basically until I got big enough that I could probably have caught it, I would see this little feather when I was in there around the holidays looking at the Christmas tree. And it would always float up near the ceiling. And we had ceiling heat, which there's no air or anything. It's rods in the ceiling that heat up. So if anything, there should have been a downdraft. But this little feather would float up near the ceiling just out of reach. And I even broke protocol, which my mom would have killed me for if she had known. I climbed on the back of the couch and on the chairs and everything trying to get this feather, and it would always stay just out of reach. I would never see it any other time of year. And like I said, when I got big enough to where I could have caught it, I never saw it again. And when that guy told that story, it was one of those where I just wanted to shout, yeah, me too. But I felt like it took away. It's like, he's thinking, yeah, okay, this is, my favorite paranormal experience, and you're going to say it happened to you too.
Yeah.
So I didn't say anything, but it really did. And it was amazing because I never told that story to anybody. And here's somebody with almost exactly the same story. And after that, I always wondered, well, was it my grandfather? I never knew either one of my grandfathers. My dad's father died years before I was born. And my mom's father passed away when I was like 6 months old, so I don't remember anything about him. So maybe it was my grandfather coming back as a little white gossamer feather to float around. Who knows?
Maybe. Yeah, I've heard a lot of encounters with or experiences with the feathers. I don't think I've ever had one, but maybe I have, and I just didn't register it that way.
Yeah, now, I've had that happen before, where you see one floating around outside, but I never considered it anything possibly as paranormal until, I kind of started thinking about it, putting it together, and who knows,
Yeah. Good thing your mother didn't walk in as you're standing on the back of the couch.
Oh man, the feather would have been the least of my worries. Yeah, I would have, my mom believed in corporal punishment. I would have got a paddling, and to her credit, I deserved every paddling I ever got, and deserved a lot more than I ever got too.
Boys.
Yeah.
So, tell us, you wrote how many books now?
That's 3 that I've published. Then I co-authored Cisco's book with her. We're All Children in the Wilderness of the Afterlife. Haunted, a guided tour through a haunted life. Sorry, that title's a mouthful. I trip up on it sometimes. I co-authored that with her. Basically just went through and wrote, she basically had the idea to have me write an afterword for each chapter, which is what I did. So it turned out really well. And then I've got at least 3 more books in various stages of completion that I haven't published. There's one of just pure ghost stories. There's another about ghosts and strange happenings along the Appalachian Trail. And the third one, which is almost complete, 99% complete, is about mysteries of the Smoky Mountains. And actually, I've narrated some of those stories before I published the book. So if you want to preview that one, go to my YouTube channel and listen to the stories about the Great Smokies. I've got several of them on there.
And what's your YouTube channel, just so the listeners know where to find it?
13 Past Midnight. Okay, and 13 is spelled out, yeah.
Okay, yeah. Nice. Yeah, folks, I suggest you check out that YouTube channel because, like I said, he's got some really interesting stories there and narrations, and I really enjoy your YouTube channel.
Well, thank you. And like I said, I have fun doing it, and I've had some requests to branch out, and I may start covering true crime and
nice.
Disappearances and things like that. I wrote magazine articles concerning true crime back in the 90s, so I've got a whole decade or more worth of archives that I can dig through there and get some good stories that maybe haven't seen a lot of press.
Oh, yeah. And who knows, they're or are they unsolved?
For the most part, unless it was something where I was talking about a major case, where they had caught and prosecuted somebody. But I have a lot of unsolved stuff, and especially some of the disappearances and things. And I know David Paulides has excellent series, the Missing 411. Those are just fascinating. Steph Young has got some really frightening tales of people that have gone missing or turned up dead after being missing, but under unusual circumstances. So may kind of throw my hat into that ring because that's something that interested me really from the time I was a child. The Dennis Martin case, the little boy who disappeared in the Great Smoky Mountains, that's David Paulides has done extensive research on that case, and that was one of my first knowledge of a missing person. I was just a year younger than Dennis, and it happened he lived in the town that I lived in and disappeared in the mountains from Cades Cove, where my family often went. So that was the first time, I think, when, as a child, I had that realization that, sometimes bad things happen to kids. Mm-hmm. And in my little 5-year-old mind, I even went out and looked through our woods for him, just,
really?
What if he wandered down here, even though it was, an hour away or so. It's just in my head,
And you were 5?
Yeah.
Wow. Brave.
So that one always stuck with me. And it's just a sad case, really. There were no trace of him ever found. There was one footprint I think they saw that they thought might have been his, but as happens in a lot of these cases where people go missing, the weather went bad almost immediately and torrential rainfall. But at that time, it was the biggest manhunt that the Smokies had ever had. No trace of him. And his father, just whom I met before, he's a friend of a friend, he was just, absolutely broken.
Oh, I can imagine.
As you can imagine, he passed away Halloween, I think about 2 or 3 years ago. And I was just thinking, Dennis would have been like in his 40s, maybe 50 years old by that time. And for the father to have to live, all those decades with absolutely no closure. Yep. And he even said, I'd be happy, to find a body, anything,
Yeah.
At this point, just to know, but there was never any trace.
Wow. Yeah, we've had some tragedies in my community here recently, and I don't know what's worse, finding the body of your child or not knowing where they are, and maybe having a little bit of hope, thinking maybe they're still alive and they're okay. So I don't know.
And that was what Mr. Martin said. He says, I've always dreamed that one day, there'd be a knock at the door and I'd go and there'd be some man that looked kind of familiar and it'd be like, Dad, it's me.
Yeah.
And, sadly, that never happened. But, yeah, you were telling me about the people that washed away or drowned there.
Yeah, it's we've had a lot of bad flooding here, and a couple of teens went missing. So one sadly was found, and it wasn't under a good circumstance, and the other one they still don't know. So I couldn't do that. I actually helped look for a body one time, and I was thankful that I wasn't the one that found it. It was just up in Kentucky at Cumberland Falls State Park. A girl had gotten too close to the edge and went over the falls, and they were looking for the body. And I was in part of the crew that walked down the river there looking for her, and they actually ended up finding her a couple miles farther down than where I was looking for. But, I mean, every step is the way. It's like, I want to find her, but I don't want to find her. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Wow. So getting back to some of the true crimes, you hear people sometimes talking about special, I don't want to call them special forces, but there'd be a separate detachment from various police that would handle just the weird, what could potentially be paranormal. Do you think those actually exist?
I think they do, kind of like the X-Files type thing, or Warehouse 13.
Yeah.
I think so. I had a friend that I went to school with whose dad was, I don't want to give away too much here because I don't know what position he might be in there now, but he was very high up in the FBI, and he would talk about stuff that he had seen that just didn't make any sense, or maybe had some sort of almost supernatural or occult element to it. And he didn't come right out and say it, but he kind of hinted that there were specialists that they would call in for stuff like that. Because, it's not unknown for the local police and even higher up the federal guys to occasionally use psychics and things when they're working on cases, because you get to a point where you've exhausted all your leads and you've done all your due diligence and forensics and things, and maybe, just maybe, doesn't hurt to listen to these people and see, because there have been some breaks in some cases that came from psychics.
Yeah, I've heard of some police officers who just don't even want to bother with psychics, but others, even though they don't believe in it, they're going to say, well, let's give it a try because you never know, and we're willing to try anything.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I've done a lot of cops and a lot of medical professionals that have had, supernatural or strange experiences. And I think anybody that works in life or death situations like that, or sees the aftermath of violent crimes and horrific injuries and things, that kind of goes along with the territory.
For sure. So, I don't know. Have you done paranormal investigating?
I have. I had a group that did that sort of thing back in probably 85 or so, before it was a thing, before it was in vogue. I had a group that would go out. We didn't call it that at the time, but it was like the ghost hunting and things that people do now, but 35 years ago or something. But it was not so much as investigating as it was just going out, and enjoying being in spooky, creepy places and seeing if we could experience anything. We did have a couple like micro cassette recorders. This was the 80s. We didn't have the technology and stuff that's available now. But I would love to go back to some of the places I've been with some of the new things that are available. And I'm I've been studying these the voice boxes and things. I'm still kind of in the middle on that, where the ones like where it scans the radio frequencies, and occasionally you hear words out there. But, if you're scanning a radio broadcast, you're going to hear words and bits of words. But then I've seen video of where whatever they seem to be communicating with is like using that to put together words that answer questions that's being posed to it. So it's like, okay. I'm not going to discount that it can't work through some sort of electrical device like that.
Yeah. The team that I'm with, we use the spirit box as well as the Ovulus, and I don't like the spirit box just because it's annoying and hurt. It gives me a headache because you hear that,
Yeah.
But I was always, how is this supposed to really work? But there's a few instances where it was just too coincidental that, that one incidents we're investigating a place here called Buck Hill, and it came through, they're coming. And we're like, they're coming, says, yes, 2. And like, what are you talking about? And all of a sudden down the hill, 2 police cars come down. Because a lot of teenagers would go there drinking, looking for the spirits, right? And so they would patrol the area every once in a while just to make sure that everybody's safe. And they see a bunch of, they see us here. So, yeah, they're coming, too. Like, okay, 1 officer per car, like 2 vehicles. Like, are you kidding me? It's like, well,
and like you said, that's just a little too focused to be entirely coincidental.
Yeah, and same thing with the Ovulus. I always wondered, it's pre-programmed. You can put, depending on which unit that you get, it can be 3,000 words. It could be more than that. And at first I thought, well, you're pre-programming it. Of course, it's just going to spit out maybe random words. But again, during investigations, it's just uncanny how you ask a particular question and it would actually give you a word or two and pertaining to what you just asked. Mm-hmm. So, there has to be something to it. How it works, I have no idea.
Yeah. Again, said I can't discount anything. I've seen the Ouija board do stuff like that. And so if that can do it, then why not something electronic?
Exactly, yeah. And they say that, and again, it's all pure speculation because no one really knows for sure, but they say the spirits are energy, so why not? They might be able to manipulate communication devices. Mm-hmm. But again, pure speculation. But it would be nice to know for sure.
There's a lot of things, though, with the paranormal that I think the fun is actually in the hunt. And anything I've ever been involved with, I walked away with more questions than answers. But I think that's just the nature of it. The more you learn, the more you know, the more you find out that you don't know. Soraya Ascath, who has the Where'd the Road Go show, he has an analogy of a paranormal being an onion, that, you peel back a layer, there's another layer, and beyond that, more layers, and you never quite get to the center.
I've heard Cisco say that often. The paranormal
that's
onion.
one of her favorite analogies, too.
Yeah.
And another one that Soraya likes is it's like the paranormal is like trying to put together a puzzle. You don't know how many pieces there are, and you don't have a picture on the outside of the box to know where they go. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a very apt analogy, too.
For sure. I've also heard other people use the analogy for the puzzle. Say sometimes you have puzzle pieces from other puzzles, and you're trying to put it together, and it just doesn't make sense.
5 puzzles in one box.
Yeah, right? And no picture. Well, so do you have any upcoming projects on the go?
Right now, I'm just working on my YouTube channel. I've got those books in the works that I mentioned. I'm working on some film scripts.
Nice.
I was approached about the availability of the rights to my first 2 books, and the movie rights are available. But the one concession that I wanted to write the script. So they're like, okay, let's see what you can come up with. And the idea they had was to present it almost like a Tales from the Crypt type story, where some of the best stories are presented in little vignettes, like maybe a main theme came through it. So I'm working on that. I don't want to say a whole lot and jinx it before it gets off the ground, but I'm anxiously working on that, and then I've got some other ideas in the mix. But yeah, right now it's just I write every day, and I try to put out 2 or 3 videos a week, and it keeps me busy.
Nice. Good luck on the scripts. That's I hope if it goes through that that it really stays, like they don't try and deviate and make it a little bit more entertaining. Just you know what I mean.
Well, I'm sure there'll be some embellishment just for entertainment value,
Yeah.
but and
Try
since
and
I'm
stay
picking
true.
the stories that I'm putting in the script, I'm trying to pick ones that are already pretty fantastical that won't require a lot of embellishment in them. Also, kind of pushing for them to film it in Middle Tennessee, where a lot of those stories actually come from, just to add an air of legitimacy to it. But then again, it could be in the mountains or the hills anywhere, and it would still look good.
Yeah.
But I would know the difference. But yeah, like I said, I'm trying to pick stories that translate well to film, and a lot of them just, because of the way some of the things happen and whatnot, it wouldn't even require a lot of special effects. Some of them would, some of them wouldn't. It depends. So yeah, like I said, I'm interested to see where it goes. I would love to sell it as a script package, and then I can get my Writers Guild card and move to Los Angeles and be a script doctor for hire.
And don't forget us little people.
I'll bring you all on board when I start my production company.
That'll be awesome. And if ever you film in Canada, let me know.
Yeah, that's a lot of film there. That's a lot of activity in Canada. The later seasons of the X-Files they filmed in Canada for tax purposes.
Yeah, it really, with some like shows like Supernatural, really gave a boost to coming to Canada to film TV shows and movies and whatnot. And it's been great.
Yeah, they filmed Grimm here in Portland, so that was a lot of fun. I got to. There was a couple times I'd be out and I'd see they had the streets blocked off and lights up and stuff, and I watched. But yeah, a lot of the external locations, Grimm, are right here in Portland.
Interesting. Used to love that show.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, we're almost at the end, so why don't you give our listeners where we can find you and if they want to contact you?
Okay, well, I'm on Facebook, just Steve Stockton. There's a couple of us with that name, but you'll be able to pick mine out. And I'm on Twitter. I'm heavy presence on Twitter. My handle on there is Strange and Odd. And my email's always at the end of my books. It's Steve Stockton, and the number is 81@gmail.com. I love hearing stories. I love hearing people that have read my books or have something they'd like to share. And now my YouTube channel, 13 Past Midnight.
And that's 13, not the number. It's written out.
Yeah, it's written out. Yeah.
Great. I'll also add the links to the show, like to the show notes. So if anybody wants to just click on those links, they'll be able to contact you. And
great. And I appreciate you having me on. It's been fun. Said it took us a while to get here, but
it was
definitely
worth it.
worth the wait. The time has flown by, and I'm looking forward to sharing this with my friends and fans when it's released.
Me too. Well, you take care, and thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure.
Talk to you later.
Goodbye.
Bye. Well, we've made it to the end of another episode. Thanks so much for listening. Until next time, take care of each other. And if you'd like to be on the show or have questions and comments, just drop me an email, paranormalheart13@gmail.com. I'd love to hear from you.
Paranormal Heart would like to extend a special thank you to PurplePlanet.com for supplying the music for the show. The views and opinions expressed on Paranormal Heart are those of the host and participants.